Our first reading is from Isaiah 7, 13 to 17. Then Isaiah said, "Hear now, you house of David. Is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and we will call him Emmanuel. He will be eating cats and honey, when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will lay waste. The Lord will bring on you and your people and on the house of your father a time unlike any other, since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria." Amen.
This reading is from Luke chapter 1, verses 13 to 17. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will call him John. He will be a joy and delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is to never take wine or other fermented drink. He will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he is born. He will bring back many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God. And he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and the power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord."
Just forgive me today if I get I'm a little bit in awe of God today, more so when I even began writing this talk, even more so when when we began thinking about what this series would look like. Because in worship today, am just in awe of who God is. And the magnificence of how through time and through history, and even now in our little lives today, that God is still working. Because did you know, I learnt this on Thursday, Laura showed us a video, that in the middle of the solar system, actually, in like the grand schemes of size and like proportions, the world Earth that we live in is actually like the size of a marble compared to everything else. And we are on that. That is incredible. So forgive me today, because I think I'm going to get a bit emotional about the awesomeness and the wonder of God. Like my daughter, as I am in awe today, last Christmas, she was a bit in awe of the lights, of all the things of Christmas. And she learnt a significant word. It's a word that we use when something takes our breath away, when we see something beautiful that we are surprised and we can't handle it. We might say this word in a whisper when we see a sky full of stars. Perhaps the shepherds said that when they saw the sky full of stars on that night when the angels came to tell them the good news. This word might be used as someone holds a baby for the first time. Or maybe it will slip out in an unforgettable theatre performance. Or maybe a very joyful exclamation from a parent as they see their child mark making. If you're a parent of a small child, that's what we call it, mark making. We'll know this word, so you might say it then. Any guesses what that word might be? Wow, that is the word that she learned. In the middle, if you've ever driven through Lawley down the main road, there is a lot of lights. And she was there in a little trike, and she just looked at me and her dad and went, wow. At Christmas, we're surrounded by these wow moments. these flashes of awe and wonder. And they open our hearts and they stir them into wondering and thinking more. Because I think wowing leads us to wondering. When we actually, though, take time to do that, to look up at the stars and to wonder and to wow, we have to stop. To see our child's beautiful artwork, we have to stop and look. To see anything that gives us a wow moment, we have to pause. Plato, a philosopher from a long time ago, once wrote that wondering is the beginning of wisdom. I don't know if you've ever wondered this, but have you ever wondered who on earth thought about cake and how to make it? Who was that first person that did that? Or who found out that actually when you did something with milk, you got cheese? If people didn't wonder and try these out, we'd never have glorious, victorious sponges or great different types of cheeses, would we? Somebody had to wonder. We wouldn't have the telephone, the computer, any things if somebody didn't first go, oh, I wonder what would happen if we did this. And in many ways, though, at Christmas, we're invited again into this posture, one of openness, of curiosity and humility. It's a time when it's a really easy opportunity to invite our friends and neighbours and family into church because they're open. Perhaps it's because they want to feel all warm and fuzzy, or they just want a breather in the middle of this season, or because they see all this stuff on their telly, they begin to wonder. And it's there that God might just surprise us. But Christmas isn't just full of wonder in the sentimental or in the lights, but in the deeper, more unsettling wonder as well. We might begin to think, what kind of God would enter a world like this? You might be thinking that today. Or why a manger? Why a child? And why 2,000 years ago? And why is the world still a mess? But we also might begin to wonder about the pain in our lives too. And this time of year at Christmas, it all becomes entangled. The highs and the lows and the mediocre. And we begin to ask those questions. They're not childish questions, they're profound, extraordinary ones that so many people want answers to. You mean, like, people have studied long and hard to find these questions of God, does he really exist? And yet, we are here, and we are wondering. I imagine that's probably why you're here in the first place. At some point, you wondered, does God exist? And for me, and I hope for you as well, God did come into our world, and he's inviting you to marvel again. So if you hadn't guessed it, and you haven't seen the big banner as you came in, our theme for this year is wonder. That is what we will be doing throughout Advent. We'll be wondering at different themes. And today we're going to be wondering at the wonder of the promise. So, are you all with me? You're all ready to wonder and invite with expectation what might God do in your lives or has already done? Yeah? So we're going to watch a short video that I hope will work, just to kind of get our heads around what awe and wonder is.
Which is quite a lot. The experience.
So if you, like that lady, stopped to wonder, it literally changes the things that go on in your mind. It brings peace and less anxiety in our lives. And I don't know, I know that I've already asked you to invite you into wondering, but that makes me really excited to pause and look at God's creation and go, Oh, goodness me, God. You are amazing. Now, one of the moments, the things about being a Christian, the things about what Jesus has done that stirs awe and wonder in me is that throughout the whole of the Bible, there are promises and moments within it that all lead to Jesus. It all connects to and from. That gives me awe and wonder. It's incredible, this book, how you read it one day and then you'll read it another day and you'll see more connections, more of what God's doing in your life, but more of how God has been through the whole of history, showing us who he is and weaving it all together. And he made so many promises in the Bible and so many that are still being fulfilled and came to be in Jesus. But the thing with a promise is that we might make promises to one another here on earth, hadn't we? We make a promise. If you've been married, you make a promise to that person to be with them before God. But as a child, you might make a smaller promise, like, I promise I'm going to tidy my room. Or even as an adult, as I often do to my husband, I promise I'll tidy my side of the room. But we sometimes, with those promises, they can be broken. And that can be really hard and really painful. But we have a God who made promises through history that are unlike us, have not been broken. You see, this promise, these promises that have woven through history didn't just begin with Mary in Bethlehem. God's story has been unfolding since the very beginning of time, right with Adam and Eve. The Christmas story is in fact a story of promises whispered across centuries of hope in the darkness and bringing light. So as we go, just going to take us briefly on a little bit of a history lesson to show you how God was at work right from the very beginning. Now, thousands and thousands of years before Jesus, God spoke to a man called Abraham. Now, Abraham was married to Sarah, and they, in their old age, had a child. And God promised them that through your family, all nations on earth will be blessed. Now, that's not a small promise, is it? All nations on earth will be blessed. That's a really big promise. And that must have felt for Abraham like, what? All nations? But it was a promise for the whole world, that promise was. And even then, that promise shows us that God's heart was expansive. It was eternal. And whilst Abraham couldn't fully get his head round it, he trusted God. And he followed through what was asked of him. And through his descendants, the promise began to unfold. And right at the very beginning, this shows us that this plan, it wasn't one big bang, but it was a slow one. It was one where we had to trust, the people had to trust in God. And over the generations, it did unfold, but it required patience and trust in God. But the people, they found that really hard and they kept turning their back on God. And a few centuries later, Isaiah comes along. And this prophet Isaiah, God spoke to him again and talked to him about how this darkness and this political oppression and all this uncertainty and human despair, well, a light was going to come and change the world. It says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Those living in the land of the deep darkness, a light has dawned. Here, this promise becomes more specific. Is a light that will shine not only for Israel, but the entire world. It was a light that was being promised not just for the lonely and the lost, but for everyone. But he also promised to Isaiah something else, that a virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and he will be called Emmanuel. And that, they must have thought, who will that be? He was going to be the Prince of Peace, the everlasting God, Emmanuel, God with us. And that was a promise that he would come, this man would come to save them, to bring light in the darkness. And that happened a long time before Jesus. Isaiah, though, through his writing through this, reminds us that awe and wonder are not only for moments of beauty, but also for moments of mystery. They probably thought, what on earth is going on? What are you on about? But they were desperate and they wanted hope and trust, so they trusted God. And then quite a while later, Micah comes along. And again, God promises unfold and continue through him. It says, but you, Bethlehem, Ephratah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will rule over Israel, whose origins are from old and from ancient times. The promise that was coming through Micah again became more specific about who this person would be. And when you read on and you read what is being actually said here, it's about a king is going to come, Micah shares, but it's not going to come the way that the world thinks it will come. But there will be someone who will come merely as a shepherd, a bringer of peace and a bearer of mercy. That he will come and the power will be revealed in gentleness, in strength, in humility, and his victory will be in love. And then later in the Bible, we see more of the promise that God has for us, his people. A promise of hope and a prophecy of a baby born in Bethlehem of Nazareth. That will come and be born in Bethlehem. But a girl from Nazareth will have to say yes to this promise. It says in Luke's gospel, you will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and his kingdom will never end. Mary had to say yes when the angel Gabriel, well, she didn't have to, but she chose to say yes when the angel Gabriel came to her to say, you are going to conceive a child. Mary's yes in that moment is such a significant moment. I can only imagine how scared she would have been. A girl who would have been about 14, who wasn't married, in a place that nobody really liked Nazareth, where she was from. It's kind of a place that was forgotten about. And yet she was invited. She was invited to bear the Son of God. And carry him. And he was going to come to be the light of the world, as those promises foretold. In this moment, we see that the eternal steps into the temporal, and part of God's huge plan when God's light finally pierces and comes into the world. And I don't know about you, but again, I begin to think, wow. From Abraham to Isaiah to Micah, and so many other people in between who were given promises from God to share. It reminds us that Jesus is not simply a baby, but he came to be the light of the world, a light that illuminates our darkest corners, a light that cannot be extinguished by sin or by death, a light that calls us out of fear into trust, out of darkness and into joy. And if we this Christmas choose to begin to wonder, there it might be our entrances into this light. When we wonder, we will be able to see God in the ordinary moments. We'll be able to see how God's fingerprints is all over creation, all through history, in all our relationships, and throughout our whole lives. So when we wonder, it transforms, it teaches us, it recognizes. When we wonder what is going on in the Bible, our lives are transformed, our days might be made new by seeing God going, wow, you promised that for me. But we just need to pause, to wonder at the promises God has for us and our lives. But you might be thinking, it's all well and good that all this is written in the Bible, but where can I actually see God in the world? You might think that you see God or feel you sense God when you look at the stars. But something recently that really had me go, wow, and experience the awe and wonder of God was when I was in a meeting, and I'm a school governor at a primary school called St George's, and it's a Church of England school, and they have an assessment each year called SIAMS, and it's basically the Church of England's inspection to check that they are doing religious education properly as a Church of England school. And the person who came to do this training shared an image, if we could have it on the screen. Now, this image is the core of a nearby spiral galaxy called the M51, taken with the wide field planetary camera on NASA's Hubble telescope, to be exact. And it shows what I think looks like a cross. And now, I'm not really somebody who's really into space, but the way that this trainer told us that this is in the center, in the exact position of a black hole. And what is forming that is a mass of equivalent to 1 million stars like the sun. And there, the thing that we look to remind us of Jesus is in the middle of that. A cosmic vision, the cross at the center. Now, I can't help but think, that's God. That's God reminding us that his fingerprints are all over creation. And in that moment, I go, wow, God, you are far beyond anything I can imagine. And it just exceeds and blows my mind out of the waters of all the things that God can do. Because the world, it reminds me, that is unmanageably vast. Galaxies swirls and spirals are light, and stars are born and die. And black holes lurk at the center of this immense darkness, and yet there, a cross is placed. And seeing that reminds me that even in the vastness of the universe, that darkness is not beyond God's reach. The light of the world has come, and he will not be overcome by the darkness. And I think that, to me, 100% proves it. When I discovered this, when I heard this, I really struggled to concentrate on the rest of the training, because I was in absolute awe and wonder. That was my wow moment of this year. So if we all let ourselves, though, this Christmas, experience the awe and wonder, as we heard at the beginning, we'll probably all be a little bit happier, a little bit less rushed, and perhaps a bit more peaceful. So this Christmas, can I invite you to be amazed again at God's plan for your lives? Be amazed again at the Bible and how it's been woven through history, the promises leading up to Jesus' birth and leading up to where we are today in 2025. To stand in the mystery of God's promise and say yes, like Mary. Let us wonder together at the light of the world, born in a manger, lived in Galilee, crucified on a cross and risen in glory. Let us be in awe and wonder at the cosmos, at the stars. Let us wonder lead us into new thinking, perhaps a new cake recipe even, maybe a new cheese. And let us take that light out into the world and invite others to wonder too. Because the light has come, the promise is fulfilled, and the wonder is here. Now, this morning, I know our children, I hope, are going to come in shortly. We wondered together, thinking as well about Abraham, Isaiah, and Micah, and Mary, and how those promises were fulfilled in Jesus when he was born and came to dwell among us. And one way that we remember that Jesus came and was light of the world is through a Christingle. Those oranges that, it seems a bit of a strange thing, doesn't it? An orange with a candle in, but each thing represents something of God's love for us. The orange represents the world. The red ribbon around it represents the fact that Jesus died for us on the cross and shed his blood for us. The fruits or sweets or whatever a church chooses to use with skewers reminds us of God's blessings of the 4 seasons, of the things that are provided for us. And the candle in the middle represents the light of the world, piercing in through the darkness. The promises of the Old Testament we remember today in a little orange. And that's pretty cool. So just as the children come in, shall we just pause again to wonder at God?